Hello there. Um, Give me a quick second here. Slightly chilly outside. It's not all too bad, actually. Um, um, just a little bit. It was a bit cooler um, earlier today. I don't know what the exact temperature is right now, but um, nonetheless, not too worried. Wearing a little sweater and think I'm fine right now. Um, Yeah, so it's entirely possible. I think I'll probably need to feed my doggies here, because you can see the back there, in the near future. All right, Jay, Jasper, come on, come on. I know you're all waiting. If you want to go inside, let's just go inside. There you go. He went to his bed. Um, so, um, today, which is January 9th, I believe, the 9th or 10th. It's a Wednesday. Wait, I don't know. Or is it the 9th or 10th? I don't know. I don't know. That doesn't feel quite right. It's sometime around. It's fairly close to that. Although I think it might actually be the 8th. I feel like that might be more accurate. But anyhow, so yes, Wednesday. So I have rest of this week, and I have basically some of Sunday until I go back to my home college. Um, I do feel a little bit anxious, but nothing too terribly stressed. It'll feel weird going back to school already. You know, I mean, and especially because I haven't been to my home college since like April of last year. So, like, 'cause that's when I left. I would say May, but actually finished it like pretty much the end of April. So we're just about. Um, so, yeah, I've been home for a couple months. Um, Spent a good deal of time um, just watching YouTube or playing Minecraft or stuff like that. And I'm sure I'm probably going to do those a good deal once I return to my home college as well. You know, I do wonder when my family's supposed to be getting back this evening. I don't think it's supposed to be as late as it was uh, either yesterday or the day before that, but I don't know. All right, come on. Come on, Tiger. You can come back out. She's just sitting by the door. My dog, Tucky. He needs some sweet. Um. Anyways, so it's kind of just been a little bit of the stuff there, although not really a ton helpful, I suppose, but nonetheless. Um. So let's see here. Um. Oh man, I just a little tired. I actually was playing Minecraft for a good bit of the day today. Yesterday I didn't really do all that much. I mostly just watched some YouTube and then a little bit of a show for like an hour or two. But today I did some Minecraft PvP and a little bit of speedrunning practice stuff. Not super extensively, but I think I did pretty well for the most part. Nothing really crazy, but I think it was overall pretty decent gameplay. But I'm not really here to talk about that in this video. If you are curious to know what I was talking about yesterday, in case you didn't know, I did a video or two yesterday, which I did. A little redundant to say that, but whatever. I should have. Well, I was gonna say I should have already put them on this YouTube channel yesterday, but I unfortunately actually didn't. So you'll probably see if you're watching this, if anyone's watching this, then they might have been. Those two videos might be released like pretty much about the same time as this one, but or pretty close to it, anyways. But I don't know. So in those, I just talked a little about, yeah. Excuse me for yawning. I talked a little bit about some stuff with, not my pets, my 2 cats, my 2 dogs we have here in my home, and, well, I was gesturing to my house, but, you couldn't see that. And also, I talked a little bit about, just like some personality type stuff, which has been an interest of mine that's kind of resurfaced recently because I'm not really entirely sure to be honest why I started thinking of it again, but I recently got typed officially in both Myers-Briggs and Enneagram. And I was just talking a little bit about some types that I thought I used to be, but I, actually wasn't. Anyways, I need to get on what I'm saying, because I spent like 7 minutes, and everyone's probably like, oh, I don't even know what's watching at this point, like, get on with it. But, so, as I was playing Minecraft the last couple hours, I was just watching I was listening to a bunch of different random videos, some of which were by this guy, Zach Star. Now he does have a different channel, Zach Star himself, and he makes a lot of very sarcastic style of humor, kind of like very highly theoretical, scenarios, and it's really funny to just like watch, and see what kinds of ridiculous stuff that he can get away with, in those, these little stories that he makes or whatever. But nonetheless, so with the main channel that he has, just Zach Star, I think that's what he just called it. I'll put that one. He talks about like a lot of very like sciencey, hard sciencey type of stuff. He knows a lot about stuff like statistics and probability and physics, and I think a decent bit about chemistry too. I don't remember quite as much of that, but like a lot of like the very highly theoretical. I don't know if it's really hard sciences, but I'm not really sure what actually counts as a hard or a soft science, quote unquote. So if anyone knows, feel free to tell me in the comment section down below. And if you are somehow enjoying this video, and you want to see any more of the stuff that I do, or whatever, like, just feel free to like the button, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so you can see more stuff, see more content. Anyhow, yeah, you might hear some stuff from down there by that barn. I don't know what they're doing. To be honest, I don't really know what they're normally doing down there, but sort of highly productive, very important stuff. So yeah, just don't mind that. But So some of the videos I was watching, there was one or two where this guy was Zach was trying to explain something about, um, you know, how change happens with, or like sometimes the unexpected, like, results or findings of when you're implementing different social policies, especially in politics, but this also very much applies to smaller scale things. So, one of the examples that he had that he was really focusing on, I believe, was something about where, like, if you what was it? If you so say if there was like this child care clinic, right, and they had a problem of a lot of the parents being late, by more than just a couple minutes to pick up their kids. So, what the clinic did was they decided to introduce a $3 fee for each time that happened. Now, they did make a decent little amount of money from that. Not really a ton. He didn't really go into too much detail about that. But what actually ended up happening was that instead of less parents being late, so that way they could avoid just paying the little fee. What actually ended up happening was a lot of the parents, um, actually were more likely to be late. And a little bit more frequently as well, which was quite interesting. So they actually ended up paying, for the fee, of being late, have more than a couple minutes to pick up their child. And one of the things that he was kind of talking about that was perhaps one of the leading causes of why this actually happened was something about, like, that, because it's something about, like, an exchange of trying to, like, because you're taking away. What happened, what he speculated, was that basically this thing, it took away where parents might feel like guilty about being late, right? And when that did happen, which was quite a lot in this case, and they'd probably feel sorry for, the, the workers at the daycare or the child care or whatever it's called, and whatnot. And they want to try to get out of there as soon as possible. But then if you just introduce the money thing, then, like, that kind of just got rid of their reason, because then they could kind of just expect, like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna pay over the thing, and I'm paying this person who I'm already paying anyways to take care of my child, just for just a little bit more. Like, that's not really that big of a deal, and then they don't really feel as guilty about it. Now, of course, obviously it would look different for each person to person, but he wasn't really going in depth on the individuals necessarily in this case. But it's a pretty interesting kind of thing. And so what his whole point was, essentially, either with that scenario or with some other real or hypothetical ones that he mentioned, and that some people in the comments mentioned that I actually saw. For example, one about, there was at least a good couple of them that were about where, even when you introduced, like, higher quality safety measures into different vehicles or into contact sports or something like that, that people would basically kind of just like compensate for that safety, and they might act a bit riskier. They might take greater risks or more often. They might feel much more comfortable doing so with that, and it basically actually kind of either ends up leveling it out so that there's basically just the same kind of amount of incidents regardless of the actual technology used, or in some cases actually more, which was quite kind of shocking actually, but it does make a little bit of sense, I think. And so Zach was kind of just trying to, connect this to politics. So the primary example that he gave was that, so forever ago, here in the U.S., there used to be some kind of, giant, sales tax or something like that on yachts that would, increase their, a certain kind of yacht, and then increase the price by, a pretty significant amount or something like that. And even though a lot of people wouldn't have really, cared for it and been whatever, surely, the uber rich people, who are already buying this stuff because they're the only ones who do that, surely they can just handle just paying a little bit more. It doesn't really hurt the rest of us or anything like that. But it actually ended up turning out to be quite controversial, in large part due to the fact that a lot of the people who were actually getting hurt the most were in fact not the super rich, but the ultra wealthy. I mean, not the ultra wealthy. What am I saying? The workers who actually made a lot of these yachts and whatnot, and that that hurt some people's job opportunities, and them being able to pay for stuff in their own lives, or whatever it was that he said exactly, but something like that. I think that's kind of the idea. And and then one of our presidents actually ended up, which I think was a Democratic one, but I can't remember which one it was right off the bat. In the early 2000s, he actually ended up revoking it or turning it down or whatever it was. But some just kind of little story thing there. And I just thought it was kind of interesting because, it's I was just thinking, that made me think a little bit about okay, so with my political stances, if you will, which I won't really go, well, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but try not to go too much in depth on that, and it kind of just made me feel okay, on one hand, I'm a little bit curious to see how, I am definitely curious to see how true to reality might my political beliefs be, of what what kind of policies or systematic changes or something like that I think should occur here in the U.S. Not really talking about other countries, but I mean, I could try, but that would be a lot more complicated because I've never really done nearly as much. I don't really have as much familiarity with other countries because, again, I haven't really ever lived in any of them, besides Australia for the couple months that I was there for a study abroad. But that's not really quite the same thing. But nonetheless, and it also makes me feel I'm not gonna lie, a bit frustrated because I know that I mean, not just for me. I think this is probably a thing maybe that a lot of people feel or go through or experience. But like, it's really hard to not just like want to be like, here's what I think and what I think is true. And like whatever the opposite of that is, it's wrong and it's bad. And I don't really like to go around, acting like that. I do want to try to be like mindful of, the environment that I'm in and the people that I'm around, and just how I'm like presenting myself and all that good stuff. I don't want to, be a bad example of someone who claims to believe or think what it is that I do think. But you know, it can be frustrating too, because I know that I definitely really like it, appreciate it when some things are just really clear cut, very easy to understand. It's very concrete. It's very black and white. And it makes it, I like to be like, oh, here's the short and easy, simple solution to this or that thing. And I know that that's definitely not just a me thing. That's like a pretty common human experience. But unfortunately, reality isn't exactly like that, and it's a lot more gray. And there's always like different things that might actually happen. There's always trade-offs that happen, just like with all these different great social policies and whatnot that we all argue over. And I'm not saying that I think that being a moderate is like the logical solution or the best kind of thing that you could do in the political sphere. I'm not promoting that, and I certainly have my issues with centrism and whatnot. But nonetheless, even if we're just mentally putting aside some of the games that I feel like, or some of the claims that some centrists might have of like, well, I'm not really, I'm not really extreme in my views. They're kind of just playing it's the whole horseshoe theory or whatever it's called. We're basically just saying that both far out sides are kind of like equally bad or equally faulty, which I strongly disagree about that. But that both sides of the aisle are equally wrong or misunderstanding in some way or something like that, I very much beg to differ. But even so, even just putting that aside, it is very important to note that yes, absolutely, we should try to, especially when it comes to things like politics, which is a very complicated, very complicated system, it impacts, each and every one's lives in different ways, and oftentimes very subtle ways. I think that we ought to have a little consideration of, what else might be the truth. So, anyways, I need to get going in to feed my dogs, my cats. I'll probably come back out here in a little bit. Pretty short, make another video. I don't know, I might not. And it's kind of just very long-winded. But if you somehow did manage to listen to this entire thing, watch it, whatever. I mean, there's not really much to see, but whatever. Then I appreciate it. And hope you have a good day, night, whatever it is for you when you're watching this. And I'd say see you in the next video, but more likely you see me in the next video, because highly doubt that I'm gonna have any of my viewers just show up at my house and be like, hey, I want to be in your videos now. Be a little weird. Also be like, how do you know where I live? A little sus. Anyways, see you next video. Bye-bye.